we've taken those learnings and figured out that we need to make sure we're continuing on this building block path where something can be used for multiple things. It means that for the customers or the users who just want to use it, that they can click, drag, and use, but also giving the people who want to configure and build with it the ability to. So a big thing I'm excited about is...
Hey, it's Simon, and in this video, we're gonna do 3 things. I'm gonna share with you the new Notion features we know about for 2025, the potential 2 new apps we could see from Notion this year, alongside a super revealing chat with Notion's head of product, core and AI, Ekin Oflazer, for the inside track on why this is all happening and what we should be expecting from Notion, or could be expecting from Notion in 2025. And if you want to check out that full conversation I had with Ekin, you can find the full lot over at bettercreating.com for free. Now listen, I am an avid Notion user. I organize my life with it, I create productivity templates on it, and I run this channel from it. But outside of the tech and YouTube bubble like mine, a lot of people still haven't heard of it. And over the last few years, it has rapidly grown and scaled. It's got a valuation of over 10 billion and has over 100 million users. And with the big year that Notion seems to have planned for 2025, could this be the year that your mum's actually heard of it? Now, before we discuss Notion's latest feature, let's say hi to Ekin.
So Ekin, thank you so much for spending some time chatting about everything Notion, product, core, AI, right?
Yeah.
This is your role.
Yeah.
What does core mean, by the way?
So core product is just what everybody knows as Notion today, the entirety of that. We make that distinction because now we're going into calendar world and mail world.
Okay.
But core is like, what everybody experiences with the text editor, databases, how you receive notifications, team spaces, all the likes. And AI, just because AI is just like a new way that people are interacting, and building that as a separate entity felt like the right way, just given it's a different way of product building.
So, brand new feature number 1 is Notion's new AI databases and a bunch of other AI one-click upgrades. Now, the first, AI databases, helps you build databases in Notion from scratch. It's quite exciting. As a super quick example, /database, and then I can click build with AI, and then I can paste a little instruction, create a Stoic journaling database inspired by Stoic approaches, and I click go. It will then design the database, including the database properties and any views that you might want for it. Now, this is a really nice middle ground option for newer users to get started, or for experienced builders, like me say, to get the busy work out of the way faster and then focus on designing a better workflow. Now, as you can see, it's done a pretty good job, including, you can add extra things. If I then click done, it creates the views and the items, but it won't yet do things like connect it to other databases, or for that matter, create you any templates. So it can't draw on information beyond that. But for template builders, new users who don't want to, say, spend money or use someone else's method, this is a really exciting option. And I think it's going to be really good for those builders who want to focus more on things like getting automations and the quality of life elements of their designs done better. Now, what's exciting for new users here is how Notion is now trying to make the usability more accessible, then allowing them to customize and have flexibility to adapt Notion to their needs. So it's click, drag, and use versus unwrap it and build it. So let's hear what Ekin had to say about how Notion is working hard to make us all happy, users and builders, to configure our ideal workspaces.
I've really enjoyed the route you guys have been taking recently. That this feels like, you've released forms, layouts, charts is a really obvious example.
Yeah.
But when I look back at things like sprints,
Yeah.
that felt like a different approach that maybe you've shifted away from. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. We've gone through our motions. I joined the company when we were 80 people.
Yeah.
We're now close to 900 people. And we've definitely had the ups and downs of figuring out how do we solve the customer need in a way that doesn't feel heavy for the customer. And at times that meant we built something maybe a little bit more rigid that solved the need, but didn't give the user the flexibility and the power that we wanted to give them. And so we've taken those learnings and figured out that we need to make sure we're continuing on this building block path where something can be used for multiple things, but then it's more about the packaging of it than building a rigid feature. So how do we make sure, as I said, technically possible to package in a way that feels first class, does not need to be rigid. It means that for the customers or the users who just want to use it, that they can click, drag, and use, but also giving the people who want to configure and build with it the ability to unwrap it. And I think with sprints, that wasn't necessarily the path we took, and we've taken those learnings, heard the customer feedback, and being like, okay, we could have done sprints in a better packaged way that allowed for both the user and the builder to operate in that world.
I think that's really exciting to hear.
So I think now could be a great time for some more people to consider turning on Notion AI, since we are now seeing things like this, one-click summaries. You can go straight into here and click summarize this page, and you'll see the system is summarizing my plan for this video. But I don't want to give too much of that away too quick. What's also great is we're getting better general knowledge functions. It's all making it a much more of a serious assistant. It can also do things like reference and adhere to your style guide from a PDF or a Notion page and help you write copy. That's cool. Now, the next section is really quality of life and usability features that we're expecting this year. For a long time, Notion have been trying to serve a range of customers, from the plug and play user through to the master builder. So I asked Ekin, how is Notion approaching that challenge? And he categorizes the usership in 3 camps. Question is, which one are you, and where does that lead us next?
If I kind of put you on the spot a bit more, can we expect to see a kind of, I would love to see, for example, and I've had conversations with other Notinos about this, which is there a kind of simple mode, like a user mode and a builder mode? And we're kind of seeing that with layouts.
Yeah.
And that, as a template creator, that is the biggest single bit of feedback I get, which is, I want it to have all the power, but I want it to have the UX and the UI that I would expect from an app. And I think you're giving us the tools, but can we expect you to kind of look at it to create stronger building tools and simpler things aside for users?
Yeah, so the framework is very much that. It's like we think about 3 personas of users that we deal with: the user, the configurer, the builder. And the configurer is like somebody who just wants to make small changes to fit their need. And the builder is like, truly, I'm opening the layouts experience. I'm gonna change how this thing looks. I'm gonna change all the settings to it. The configurer is like somebody who goes into a database and says, I wanna group it by X, right? And then the user is just, I wanna land into a database and just use it. We wanna make sure for the people who are just users, which turns out in like a company environment, that's the majority of users.
Do you think that's true of Notion? Most people are users.
Well, if you think about it, for every builder and configurer, there's probably n many users that they're working with. Ideally, we get everybody passionate about it, where they move to that spectrum of user to configurer to builder, but we also don't need everybody to be a builder. And we want to create an experience where they can coexist, but they don't have to get exposed to each other that much, because we want the product to feel simple and beautiful while also powerful, which is a very, very hard balance to strike. But I think it comes from the top. Our founders and Ivan, they care about that, and we are willing to kind of think about the future in that world versus trying to make those short-term sacrifices that won't lead to a better future.
I love that. User, configurer, builder.
Yeah.
I might have to ask my audience which one they are.
Yeah.
Let us know. I did the whole, that was a bit much.
We even have like a dashboard internally where you can enter your own user ID.
Yeah.
And it tells you basically by defining the product, how your sophistication level based on what you use in the product, to say like, oh, have you been like maybe not using automations as like a Notino?
Yeah.
It kind of gives you like a sense of like, maybe I should go try these. I haven't tried it. We have like little competitions like that internally where we're like, okay, like new people, like how can we get them to become more advanced users of Notion?
I love that. I'd love to see the analytics of where my effort goes. So my next question is, collaboration tools often struggle to balance the individual and team needs. How do you tackle that challenge in designing Notion? Because my audience, a lot of them are personal productivity. We've got the startup world, and then you've got huge enterprise. How do you tackle designing for that spectrum?
Probably equally as hard as the user configurer builder. Right. I think what we are now starting to rethink is how can we expose the product more progressively to users as they potentially go in that journey. You know, somebody might start, somebody might start with personal productivity, doing their own things, recognize that I can also use this at work. And then how does bringing somebody else in start exposing more things that they can do with this other person without burdening them before they bring other people. I think those are probably other things I would say from the past that we could have done better. We are now working towards fixing and iterating on.
The echo is so fun. So as a create, I create a number of templates, but 2 complete life operating systems basically. And there's one that also combines content management and project management basically to run this channel. And so I built this thing, and my early users have kind of come with me, the early audience, and they kind of get it. And then when I released a template last year, I had exactly the same thing where it just everything wasn't optimized for those newer people that were finding me.
Yeah.
And I had this big onslaught of people going, I love it, but I'm overwhelmed. And you're building a tool to help people stop being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So we've been following you, I think. So in my template this year, I've done exactly the same thing. I've gone, how can I just get right back to the smoothest onboarding and UI I can make? And it's really shown. Like, there's a lot happier people. And you've given us the tools, like buttons, to do that.
You can find my Notion Life OS and smaller Notion templates at bettercreating.com if you are interested. So next, you may already be aware that Ivan Zhao finally revealed that Notion is working on an offline mode. And this will indeed be a big bit of news for many of us who just can't justify Notion until it turns up. And I was also super happy to hear from him directly that Notion is focusing on improving speed for the user in 2025. This will be music to the ears of many people who want that to be the focus of the experience on Notion, faster and smoother. So rather than cover these in this video, you can watch my companion interview with Notion's CEO and founder Ivan Zhao on this channel after this. I've linked it below. And get subscribed if you haven't. Feature number 2 then has to be Notion Mail, the new app, and a couple of new super promising AI features that it also includes. Yet Notion's 3rd app release is set to join the core Notion app and the existing Notion calendar. And stick around until the end of the video, since I have a feeling there may be a 4th new Notion app planned for 2025. What? So Notion Mail is due to drop sometime in 2025. That's all we know. Beginning with support for Gmail accounts, and I'm sure they'll go further later, and will interact closely with the rest of this growing Notion suite. It will offer customizable filtering, sorting, and scheduling blocks that can help you book meetings, for example, and even inbox design templates, all in the style of Notion's workplace language. Now, I've been using the beta of Notion Mail for a little while, and perhaps the most interesting feature will be an artificial intelligence built in that intelligently sorts emails, but most excitingly can auto reply and draft for you. Now, I can't really show you much of this yet, but it really is looking great. And I really love this kind of custom drafting system, and it replies based on prompts that you give it. This could be almost like having a built-in AI agent in your email. It might allow me to move away from services like make.com for certain areas. Excitingly for Notion users, speaking with Ekin, this kind of higher level AI assistant could be coming to Notion in a deeper way in the main app too. When I asked Ekin what he was most excited about to be developing around Notion at the moment, it was telling, I think, to hear his answer.
What's something that you're super excited to be working on at the moment that's getting you fired up, or that feels like a new route for Notion?
Yeah, so a big thing I'm excited about is obviously AI related, but like what AI is ideally going to do that everybody wants it to do that nobody's really seen yet, which is, okay, I can find information using AI. I can write information using AI. But what if AI just completed that workflow itself for me in a way that kept me in the loop, but gave me superpowers, which is, Notion is a place that a lot of companies trust with their knowledge, but knowledge is one where you constantly duplicate it, write more, discuss in different places. How can you get the AI to make sure that you yourself are aware of what's to be trusted and not trusted from a reader perspective, but also from a writer perspective? If I've written a doc and I realize others have written conflicting information in my workspace, how can I be better informed to know that I need to update my doc or go speak to the person who wrote the other thing to make sure that we're aligned? Very simple example of this is like, you can imagine a product manager writing a product requirement doc with saying like a launch date is X, and then realizing that somebody in a Slack conversation said, here's a blocker, date has actually moved to 2 months after. Yeah. The next engineer who lands on that product requirement doc, knowing that that date has changed because of a Slack conversation, is important, because then you go from knowledge existing to knowledge being trusted. And trusted is like a big thing we want to work towards. And a lot of that historically has been manual. And how can AI make that more programmatic in a way that supports you?
People finding how to use AI, we don't want it to do everything. And sometimes we think that it's, I think a lot of users kind of go, it's all or nothing. It will write something for me or not. But actually the idea where it does the small bits based on your leadership feels really great.
Okay, listen, this final feature is very much my own speculation, but there are a few clues around, and based on the fact that Notion is truly shown, as Ekin shows, to be listening to user sentiment to guide it, I think there is a clue in the next answer from Ekin on some of his favourite inspiring use cases from users as to what the next big Notion feature or even app could be that they're working on. Well, let's see if you can guess from Ekin's favourite examples of how Notion users have shaped Notion's development and inspired his team.
Many users have built some really powerful use cases. Can you tell us about one example that got you really excited or that you really...
I was impressed mostly because this has happened multiple times, where it's something that somebody has created without us having known that it can be created.
Yeah.
When we launched Notion AI, like the Writer AI, early 2023, out of nowhere, we learned one of our creators using it to create diagrams with mermaid code. And how people went from, oh, this is generating text for me, to I can ask it to create a diagram. And it was just like an unlock that we learned from our users and our community. And those use cases to me are always the most interesting. I've seen one of our customers create early versions of Notion Mail in Notion way prior to us having Notion Mail, which is they created two databases. One's an inbox, one's an outbox. And they basically use the person property to have, like, when they put, say, your name in there, you receive a notification saying you've been tagged in this. And then there's a relation between the two. And this was like, I think a European customer who was just like small, they didn't want to use email. And they would basically create like an inbox, outbox in a way that they wanted it to be shared so that teams could see the communication. And that to me was like another impressive one I've seen.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's like going deep, isn't it? Yeah.
So what am I getting at here? Have you guessed? Users staying off email and building a team internal mail system with databases. Do you think we could soon see Notion's Slack competitor offering a chat system? I think so, and I'll tell you why. They recently acquired a site called Campsite, and its founders, Brian and Ryan, have recently joined Notion, and we saw a very similar thing happen with the founders of Skiff. Now, Campsite is essentially a kind of small, simple Slack competitor. So what do you think? Have I got my bet in the right place? Is Notion going to be releasing a Slack competitor? I think if they did, it could be around second half of 2025, September, maybe Make with Notion 2025. Let me know what you think in the comments. But that's not all of it. Most recently, Notion's founder shared that Notion has restarted its API team in a bigger way, which suggests we will see still further ways to make Notion interact with our wider workflows. Could this kind of focus mean that further down the line, we might see things like a dedicated Notion Task Manager app? That would open the door for that. Or maybe a Notion whiteboard solution. Again, I'd love to hear in the comments what you think about all this. Okay, time for a very quick fire round with Ekin before we wrap this up.
Right, quick fire. You ready? Last ones. One piece of advice to a new Notion user from scratch. First bit of advice.
Pick a use case and try to build it using as many Notion building blocks as you can.
I love that. It's a challenge. If you were a Notion block, what would you be?
I think a toggle.
Why?
I think it's unique to Notion, but also it's one of those things where you have to be succinct for what's visible, and you can hide a bunch of the mess underneath, but it gives people a way to just get the short version or get the detailed version in a single go.
You're just saying I'm a lot deeper under the surface, aren't you?
Yeah, it's like the iceberg.
Yeah, on the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Okay. Form or function, if you had to choose?
Oof, that's a tough one. I'm a PM, so at heart, I think it's function. And that's where I think my partners keep me well in check on how we need to balance that form.
Database or page? One word?
I think databases. Yeah.
I want to ask more, but we haven't got the time. Your most used feature in Notion, do you reckon?
Probably these days, AI.
It's been such a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you so much, Ekin.
So much.
Thanks, man. This was great.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Big thank you then to Ekin, what a great conversation. And since you are still here, I reckon you're pretty interested in making the most of Notion from here too. So I think you're gonna love checking out my favorite approaches to using Notion to simplify your workflow that I've found on this video next. Or watch this one down here for my other favorite new Notion feature, iOS shortcuts for your iPhone. Don't know if you spotted that. Click on my face to subscribe and turn on that bell if you haven't yet. And that way, I'll see you on the next one.